What a wonderful hymn to begin this afternoon. Isaac Smith will be chairing the remainder of this afternoon, but he's asked me to take this first memorial that we have before us. And I'm going to recognize the acknowledged report of officials included in delegate notebooks. And now I'm going to recognize the reader. And if the reader will please come forward.
The next memorial is Memorial 138. Resolved. Resolved that discipline paragraph 9 be added to the historic section of the discipline of the Wesleyan Church, which reads as follows. Another distinguishing characteristic of the new denomination was the endorsement of women in ministry. The 1861 ordination of Reverend Mary A. Will, a Wesleyan Methodist minister in Illinois, was one of the earliest in American history. Even earlier, Reverend Luther Lee, a prominent Wesleyan leader, had preached the ordination sermon for a congregationalist woman, Reverend Antoinette Brown, who was the very first ordained woman in the United States, according to the historical record. Also, Reverend Ella Sanders was the first woman ordained in Canada by the Reformed Baptist Alliance on September 5, 1901. The ordination of women would continue to be a hallmark of the church through future mergers. Resolved that the following sentence be added at the end of discipline paragraph 25. Among those early missionaries was a woman ordained by the Holiness Union, a historical first affirmed by the Pilgrim Holiness Church. So that paragraph 25 reads, in the annual meeting of the Union held in July 1900, the name was changed to International Apostolic Holiness Union in order to express more fully the aim of promoting a return to apostolic principles and practices. Also, in 1900, the foreign missionary work began as members of the Union went out as faith missionaries to South Africa, India, Japan, the West Indies, and South America. Among those early missionaries was a woman ordained by the Holiness Union, a historical first affirmed by the Pilgrim Holiness Church. Resolved that paragraph 675 in the discipline be updated to read as follows. A pastor is a woman or man who is an ordained, commissioned, or licensed minister, who is called by God and appointed by the church to serve as the spiritual shepherd, teacher, and administrative overseer of the local church, preaching the word, directing the worship, administering the sacraments and ordinances of the church, taking the comforts of the gospel to sin-burdened, the sick, the distressed, discipling converts, nurturing and instructing believers, equipping and enabling them for their part in ministry, and serving as chief executive officer in the government of the local church. And resolved that a new paragraph be added to the discipline as paragraph 3007, using the wording in the most recent position paper as approved by the General Board of the Wesleyan Church on Women in Ministry Leadership, 3007. The Wesleyan Church affirms that a woman is fully equal to a man in terms of her responsibility as directed by the Holy Spirit and authorized by the church to preach, teach, lead, govern, or serve in any office or ministry of the church. Madam Chair, I move the adoption of Memorial 138.
Thank you. This is before you. Part of the background is, as you see, the history here of what we have done, but it seems that in recent years, we need to be more specific in our discipline, in the writing of the discipline, It had been always, in fact, I'd had a conversation with Dr. Black about this years ago, and he would say, well, it's been, from the very beginning, it's been understood because that's who we are. So this is helping to define this more within the discipline. So as before you, any discussion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I'm kind of flying off the seat of my pants here, but I wonder if there could be some sort of friendly amendment at the end of the second resolved to point out that Reverend Ella Sanders was also a missionary who was appointed then by the Reformed Baptist Church of Canada, which was the precedent group of our current Atlantic District. It would paint the international reality that both sides of the 49th parallel had actually done that. So I don't have exact wording, but I like the idea, and I'd like to move my idea.
So is there a second for the idea? And I'm going to say something too, and I probably need to give the chair to somebody else. But that's exactly right, because that shows how we did not know what they had done when they merged with the Wesleyan Methodist. They didn't know what we had done. The Pilgrims didn't know. We all came together and found out we were all in the same bucket, so to speak, on this. So how do you want to word that, Dr. H.C.?
Well, I don't know if I want to exactly. But
Could it be editorial?
Yeah.
could we trust the editorial committee, which I certainly do, to take the idea and make it sound right, and we'll all vote for it before they even do their work.
Can we say amen?
Amen.
Anybody? I don't know what the opposite of amen is, so we won't try that one. We'll give that to the editorial committee. Any other questions or any other discussion on this? Yes. You state your name and who you are when you come in.
Yes, hi, thank you, Madam Chair. Linda Kiefer from Northeast District. Just requesting an amendment based on the memorial that the Northeast District brought and a lot of conversation that happened at our district conference, that line 63 be changed to say, instead of a woman is fully equal to a man, to say to women and men are fully equal. And line 64 to say change her responsibility to their responsibilities. And the reason I make that request is because I believe that it more accurately describes how we feel about, there's like a hint of, well, men were here and now we want to elevate women. And that's not our stance at all. So to more accurately say that we've always believed men and women are fully equipped and empowered by the Holy Spirit, I think that might just be a better wording. So that's a proposal for an amendment.
All right, Linda, thank you. And again, as I'm listening to you, you're not asking for an amendment, but perhaps editorial work in this?
Okay, yeah, if that's, yeah.
Do
I
I-
apologize if I have that.
No, that's okay.
Yeah,
Because it's the spirit of what we're trying to say.
exactly.
And you're saying it in maybe a better way, but a more definitive way, I guess I would say. Is that what you're trying to say?
Correct.
Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Madam Chair, could we have her edits?
Yeah.
Yeah, bring your edits, Linda. Yeah. Okay. All right. The body regarding these edits, we need to pass that. You agree with the edits that we have just heard? All in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. All right. Yes. State your name. I can't, the light's right in my eyes. I probably know you, but I can't see you.
Madam Chair, I'm Tamar Eisman from the Great Lakes region.
Uh-huh.
This microphone stand is entirely too tall for me, so give me a moment here.
Go
I
ahead.
recently completed my doctoral work from Wesley Seminary, and for my dissertation, I surveyed the Wesleyan clergy women, the licensed, ordained ministerial students, lay commissioned as well. And 1 out of every 3 women participated in this research. And I asked them about their experiences. First of all, what has been empowering? What has helped you in your ministry? And there were so many good stories. I also asked them, what have been obstacles to your ministry? And for just my personal story, I came out of a denomination that did not affirm women in ministry. So when I came to the Wesleyan Church in the Great Lakes region, it was so empowering for me. So I thought their answers were going to be things about childcare and balancing work and home and, that kind of stuff. The number one thing that came back overwhelmingly was the complementarian culture within the Wesleyan Church. And that just blew my mind. But there were stories, not only from lay people, but from boards not recognizing women's credentials, which meant they were not allowed to have housing allowance or serve communion. There were stories of lead pastors telling women that the Wesleyan Church had wronged them in ordaining them. There were stories from DBMDs refusing to credential women or telling women that they were just trying to compete with their husbands. There are also stories from DBMDs saying, we have candidates coming through who do not affirm women in ministry, and there's nothing we can do about it because it's not in our discipline. And so this memorial is a result of that research and a lot of other people's work as well. But it was a huge wake-up call to me. And coming from 1 out of every 3 of our women in ministry, this research, we cannot deny, or we cannot think that it's just a few in our denomination that hinder women in ministry. It is a problem. And one of the most sobering things to me was for the women who have served in the Wesleyan Church the longest. They talked about how we are more complementarian than we were 2 decades ago. And this was attributed to 2 things. One is the rise of mega churches and podcasts and these national speakers who overwhelmingly are complementarian, and that their voice is being heard more than our own denomination's voice on this issue. And so there's like ministry students, female ministry students graduating from IWU who don't even know that women in ministry they can be equal. Like not even knowing that that was a biblical stance from IWU. The other main cause, they said, was as the LGBTQ movement has grown in the church, among conservative evangelical churches, the response has been to reinforce traditional gender roles. And so that is why we are also seeing this rise of complementarianism within our own denomination. And just in conclusion, what I realized was for our church, we can only be as strongly egalitarian as our stance is on egalitarianism. If our stance is optional, then in the Wesleyan Church, it will always be optional whether or not we support women in ministry. And so I would just encourage you to vote yes on this memorial. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamar. This makes a statement, and this now embeds it in the discipline. I think that's what we're trying to say. Yes, Carl? I think that's you, yeah.
It is, thank you. I rise on behalf of my Northeast District, Carl Eastlack, the district superintendent, and our delegates here today and our 160 plus churches back home stand in unity with this memorial. We assume that it was just an oversight for the last 100 plus years, and that we're going to correct the oversight today for the good of the kingdom. That we'll correct this oversight today. It doesn't fix what was just addressed, but it's a good start. It's a good start, and I challenge my colleagues in the DS ranks. We have a lot of platform and spiritual authority to speak into this in our home districts. And may God give us the courage, should this pass, may God give us the courage to right this wrong that has been in a denomination that we've believed. And I just rise in support, strong support of this memorial in front of us as amended.
Thank you, Dr. Eastlack. Appreciate that. I might add, the words complementarian and egalitarian are probably words that have come into our vocabulary in the last 25 or 30 years. But I might add, in the early church, early parts of the holiness movement, it was very much about men and women working together, and they just did it. They didn't know they did it. I remember my father saying, I wanted a wife, and he was, like I said, he was a strong old German guy. He said, I want a wife who can sit shoulder to shoulder with me on the platform. Now, he'd never heard of egalitarian, but that's what the Bible taught, and that's what he did. So I think what we're putting here are putting more in practice, putting in words what we have practiced, but yet understanding and learning the difference between complementarian and egalitarianism. Okay, so Dr. H.C. suggests I mention it. So complementarianism is the man is over the woman, and the woman has to get permission, and also women cannot be ordained, and women have to be on all of this. That's what complementarianism is. Egalitarianism is basically the scriptures of how God said mutual submission, working together. The first statement that was written on egalitarianism was in 1989. I was invited to go to Boston with 5 other scholars to write this paper. And it's a statement. Actually, it's a statement. You can look it up online. It's Men, Women, and God statement. I brought it to the general superintendents of the Wesleyan Church. All general superintendents signed it. Many of the college presidents signed it. Way back then that we made that statement. You were a general superintendent then. And we made that statement, and that's who we were. Now, it never got in the discipline because we signed it because that's who we were to begin with. So if you want to look at egalitarianism and look up those words, that's basically what equal. It comes from the word equal. And it's how God created and wanted the church to be. There are much, as you well know, much debate. I'm involved in some of those debates. And if you want to look at a lot of good scriptural stuff on this, Christians for Biblical Equality was an organization that started out of actually that first statement. And I'm talking, I was with scholars from Gordon Conwell. I mean, that's Baptist territory. And Roger Nicole was one of those scholars from there. And they have great material on that and good scholarship that talks about egalitarianism. So I can give you a big lecture if you want it, but I won't do that.
Madam Chair, we've been egalitarian forever, and our greatest example of it is you.
Thank you. I never did do a march either. I never did march for it. But part of it, I want to say, now you're going to get me going here, is just live it out. Just live it out, Just live it, yes. All right, back to business here. We have this memorial before us. Now, General Secretary, I need your help here. It says direct vote opening. Are we going to vote on this thing by machine? Okay. So are we ready to vote? All right. Vote on your machine. You may vote. Polls closed. Thank you. This is very significant that we have done this. As a result of voting this, then memorials 4, 134, 135, 136, 137, 501 are not recommended as they are all cared for in this particular memorial. So blessings to you. And I want to say, let's live it out, not just have it in our book, okay?
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. I thought it was quite appropriate, since she is Exhibit A, that she should chair the discussion regarding that memorial. Unfortunately, she hands off to me. We're going back to 1100. Nice. I heard from numbers of you over lunch that you're thoroughly confused. And so, Tony, I'm going to take a stab at being really simple, and you can see if I'm too simple. But 1100 and subsequently, we approved, if you will recall, a different wording regarding our stance on tongues. That was approved by the last General Conference by the 2/3 aggregate vote of our districts in the North American Conference. And then it came to our attention that it actually conflicted with wording which we just didn't catch and change in the essentials. As it turns out, we can't do that. We have to either take away what we did or change the essentials. Voting yes on this lets us keep doing what we already decided to do. It's really pretty much that simple, bottom line. If we vote yes on this, the North American Conference, we're going to look at other options and avenues and say, we were quite in favor of this. As you heard earlier from the General Superintendent of the Caribbean General Conference, they're not so thrilled with that. And probably would come down, this is my ad-libbing here, but probably would come down with a different opinion on that wording. The Philippines Conference could come down with a different opinion. What we're going to do is try to eliminate this from the essentials. That gives the North American Conference the ability to change the wording to what we've already approved. And it gives the Caribbean Conference the ability to word it in a way that would be pleasing to them, Philippines Conference, etc. So I've tried to oversimplify that. Have I oversimplified it, Tony? Does that get us to the bottom line of where I'm going without giving us another hypothetical?
Yeah, that's the general direction.
Thank you. That's as close to what Tony's saying yes. That's as close as he gets on this. So.
Yes.
So thank you, sir. It took a while, but we get there. So, Secretary, I believe we've already read
Yes,
this.
sir.
We started down this road before, and then we just were aware that we were a bit out of order and went back. So 1100 is before you. Do you wish to have it read? Essentially, you will notice that it takes out of the essentials that paragraph that deals with tongues so that we can establish, once again, what we've already done. We can establish that and not be in conflict with the essentials. Any other comments on that or discussion regarding that?
This is just a question more than a comment to make sure I understand. This then is voted on by the other general conference.
You are Nate Rovenstein
yes,
from
I
Kansas.
am.
Last
Thank
I
you.
checked.
Thank you. Sorry about that. Nate Rovenstein from Kansas. So we're voting on this now, but the other general conferences have or will vote on it also, correct? Am I understanding
That's
that
correct.
correctly?
That's
Okay.
correct. And Nate, there are a variety of ideas as to how that accomplishes. We're wanting to respect their identity and autonomy. We're wanting not to overwhelm them with our majority of votes, but to allow them to make these distinctions. We believe this is an area where that's appropriate.
Josh Ratliff, Shenandoah District. Thank you for clarifying what exactly we're doing. However, I did have a little bit more of a point for clarification. So we, as the North American General Conference, will now have the freedom to establish our thinking, practice, and theology of tongues. It will still be constitutional, as I understand it, because where we put it, not realizing that it conflicted with the essentials, was in some principles and it was specifically toward God, which was constitutional. Is it automatic that if we take this out of the essentials, is it automatic that the language we agreed upon in 2022 is in our Constitution, thereby in the discipline that will be published?
Excellent question. Tony, help
It
us.
is my understanding it will be. We talked to the parliamentarian, and if this were to pass, then what was passed in 2022 could officially be ratified.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's an excellent question, clarifying point. You can understand this is a convoluted process, and we're trying to simplify it, but simple's not easy.
Thank you. Wesley Rowan from the Great Lakes region. My question is the reverse of that question. If this doesn't pass here, what happens to what happened 4 years ago? Or if it passes here but does not pass the international conference, then what would happen? Would it just fail and be dropped out of the process because it wasn't ratified?
In my opinion, those are two separate questions. If we do not pass this, then what we did has to be ruled out of order because it is in conflict with the essentials. And you want to address the second question, Tony?
What's the second question?
If we pass it here, but it is not passed the international conference.
Yeah, it takes a 2/3 aggregate vote of all three. So even if you have a majority vote here, but when you add up all three, and it does not add up to a 2/3 aggregate, then it would fail.
In which case, the memorial from 4 years ago would be ruled out of order still, correct? Okay, thank you.
Carl?
Carl Eastlack, Northeast District. I'm so sorry to speak again so soon, but I was part of this 4 years ago. What other options did we have than just, I mean, if we did this 4 years ago and we did it the right way, what was the right way so we didn't have the conflict that we're dealing with today? And is this the only change that we can do in order for this to be secured with us? I ask because I am very this is not cultural. It says in one of the whereases under 6770 in line 24, related to its own cultural practices, preferences, and customs. This is not custom, this is scripture. And we voted through with a very strong vote last year, 4 years ago, and it went down through all the districts with a very strong vote of affirmation. I don't want to just cast this away quickly to rule out the other general conferences, and I have sympathies for them being smaller and being kind of dominated by the North American church. But that's the way the system is. It's the aggregate vote of all Wesleyans in the world. And if the Wesleyan church, sometimes those in the minority decision have to receive and accept what it is. We did this last time knowing that it was going to have to go around through the constitutional process. If we did something wrong back then by not paying attention to the essentials, so my question is this the only response to fix this, or were there other things considered? And I don't know the answer to that, so I'm kind of asking for those who were part of the discussion on this.
If there's another way, I'm not aware of it. That conversation on anything that touches the essentials always starts with all three general conferences. And so out of fairness, the Philippines and the Caribbean were very gracious to us in 2012. We introduced another article on sin, which was a really good article. And I know from the Caribbean, their response was, how could we vote against this? This was good. But procedure wasn't followed then. The conversation should have started at the international level. So on this, it's simply the way that our rules are written. So that's where the conversation starts. So I guess we didn't start it in the right place. And if there's another way to try to fix this, I'm not aware of it.
Carl, you led a group that did the work on this, and again, thank you. The work wasn't done badly and what we approved, we thought
Right.
settled it.
Yeah.
It was just not, we were just not aware
Yeah.
that it was in this conflict that we needed to also change this in the essentials and didn't do it. So therefore, we have this tension. We're trying the best way we can to get to where we wanted to go. I think this does that for us if we approve it. We get back to there, we drop it out of the essentials. We can simply revert to what we've already done, but it also honors the dignity, autonomy of these other conferences in a way that doesn't seem like we've just overwhelmed them. So that's the intent behind this, but frankly, we
understand.
don't know any other way.
Right.
In order for what we did to stand, the essentials have to be changed.
I
And-
understand. So a question I would have then for our Madam Parliamentarian that is back there, the professional parliamentarian, does she see any other way that this can be accomplished and keep it in its original intent, that this go through all the general conferences with the aggregate vote counting in order to fix it this time? Is there any other way to do that?
You want me to talk? Which button?
Not even sure I'm allowed to appeal to the
Hello?
parliamentarian,
Yes,
but
thank you. Yeah. As far as I know, this is the only way I see out of it, and I think I can't get debate. I don't know of any other way.
okay. All right, thank you.
So I'll reiterate, I think as convoluted as this is, and we apologize for that, the simple fact of it is, if we vote yes on this, it allows us to go back, as the North American Conference allows us to go back, assuming the other conferences also allow us to take this, concur that we can take this out of the essentials. And then it allows each of the general conferences to craft their own language. I hope that is acceptable to each of the general conferences, but I can't know that, of course. Is there other discussion on this, or are you ready to vote on this? This will require a 2/3 majority, so yes, sir.
No, it will not require a 2/3 majority. We just simply have to vote yes or no, and that it'll be added to the tally of all three general conferences.
Thank you for that clarification. Yes, sir.
Chairman, I have just one simple query. Is the decision to move from the essentials, is that decision limited to one general conference? In a sense, it wouldn't be an amendment. I'm just asking, or do you need the consensus of the three general conferences to do that?
Yeah, it has to be a 2/3 majority aggregate vote of all three general conferences. So you have to tally all the votes of the North American General Conference on this issue, the Caribbean, and the Philippines. It will take a 2/3 majority of all of those votes.
The decision to move, that's what I mean. The
Yes.
decision to move. I just want to be clear on that.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, sir, because we treat our essentials as essentials, and it's a big deal. It's a tough deal to change them, as it should be, but that's essentially what we're doing here. Are we ready to vote on this? All right. You want to give us some instructions?
Oh, just, you can tell them polls are open. What, vote? Yeah, call for the vote.
Let's go to that vote. You see it on the screen. Everybody pressed your button. Polls are closed. That was quick. And now this will go into an aggregate total, and we will see what the other two general conferences decide, the weight of their votes. And sometime between now and next general conference, you'll hear. So thank you for the voting. Recognize the reader for the next memorial.
Mr. Chair, upon the International Conference instruction to vote, the memorial is Memorial 1153. And Assistant General Secretary Tony Casey can go ahead and explain how this memorial would work if approved by all three.
All right, again, this is an amendment to the essentials, and so a bit of a timeline for you. The Caribbean did vote on 1100, what you just voted on. You can see their vote there, 20 yes, 43 no. Then they also created this memorial, Memorial 1153. They have already voted on it. Now, we've already voted on 1100. And we are going to vote on 1153 here coming up. Then that vote will be combined with the Caribbean and the Philippines. And just so you know, the Philippines will be voting on both of these next month at their general conference. So we will know by the end of next month on both of these amendments.
Can I take a picture?
In essence, the summary of this is for Memorial 1153, it's a change to the essentials, which would, right now, it needs a 2/3 majority vote of all the general conferences. If this were to pass, this amendment, it says that on lines 40 to 42 there, that each general conference would have to pass it by a 2/3 majority. Not an aggregate vote, but each general conference would have to pass it. So again, let's go back to a hypothetical ballot here, and that's all we have here. This is not a real vote, it's a hypothetical. In this particular one, you can see, we've made a pretend vote of the Caribbean, the Philippines, and North America, and you can see in North America, only 60% were for it, but this amendment would pass. Why? Because it meets the bar of 2/3 majority. Now, if this amendment passes, 1153, that would change because it's saying we need each conference to vote a 2/3 majority. So you'll notice this is the same ballot as before, but if this amendment were to pass, then this vote would go down. Why? Because in North America, it's not a 2/3 majority. And you could spread this across every general conference. So another hypothetical ballot. In this particular case, you could see that the Caribbean passed it by a 2/3 majority. North American General Conference passed it by a 2/3 majority, but the Philippines did not. And even though you have a 2/3 aggregate that are for it, it would fail because this amendment is saying we need each conference to vote a 2/3 majority. And here's another sample of just showing you on another particular hypothetical ballot. In this particular case, while you have in aggregate, they're for it, if each general conference doesn't vote a 2/3 majority, then it would not pass. And that is the essence of what 1153 is saying. It wants to change that from an aggregate to each individual general conference having to vote a 2/3 majority.
So Tony, again, I'll try to simplify this. This allows any one of the three general conferences to veto what the other two general conferences may have approved, even if it was by an overwhelming majority. That's essentially what this would do. It gives power to against changing any of this. So that, I think that hopefully that's clear in terms of bottom line. Any discussion on that or questions regarding it? Todd?
Todd Crawford, Chesapeake. Just a clarification, would 1153 retroactively change 1100? Or is 1100 stand in the old style until we get to 1153?
Both of these stand in the old style. Both of these have to pull a 2/3 aggregate vote.
Joy Garman from North Carolina West. Just a clarification question. this would make change harder in the essentials. It wouldn't make it easier to do new things, but it would make it harder to change old things. Is that accurate?
Yes, that's a summary. And it occurs to me, I don't mean to be argumentative, but changing the essentials is already a pretty steep climb. We're demonstrating that right now. It is an uphill climb. This is not easy. It's not intended to be easy. This may make changing the essentials impossible. And for instance, what we're wanting to do, what we just voted to do, would probably not happen. It would say, if an aggregate, we already have voted 2/3 and plus our 2/3 aggregate vote to do this, but if one of the three general conferences said, no, we don't want to change the wording on tongues, then it doesn't matter what the other two say. So it gives veto power to that one. But the simple answer to your question is yes, it makes it harder. Go ahead. Follow up on your conversation. Let's go to one. Mike, let's follow up that conversation.
Thank you.
One, just
Joy Garman, North Carolina West. It's accurate that under the current rules, it is quite easy for North America to outvote the rest of the Wesleyan world, and therefore would retain not only veto power, but new legislation power that we could force both. The other general conferences could be unanimously opposed to something, and by our overwhelming numbers, we could impose it on them. Is that correct about the current state that this would seek to change?
The North American Conference has a lot of sway, but it cannot unilaterally. It doesn't have enough votes to single-handedly push something through. They need help from the other general conferences.
Carl on 4.
Carl Shepard, Crossroads General Board. One other thing I think we should keep in mind, we currently have 3 general conferences. It is highly likely in the future that we will add to that number. So at some point in the future, for example, if we would have 6 general conferences, then any one of the 6 would have a veto, not just one of 3, but any one of 6. And it would get eventually, potentially, to the point of it would just be very unlikely that you could get all of the general conferences to agree, each of them by a 2/3 vote, and make changes to the essentials extremely difficult.
Again, my question is then, since we do not have enough numbers to overwhelmingly force anything, how many delegates from the other, 2, 3, 10, 20 international delegates would be
Someone would
required?
have to do the quick math. I think it's between 65 and 70.
Okay.
So if the North American General Conference voted 100% for something, from the 200 or the 100 and something, like 170 from the other 2 general conferences, 60 of those would need to cross over and join the North American vote.
Thank you so much.
And it's pretty seldom that we vote 100% for anything. We're obviously talking about some unknowns here. And yes, sir.
Mark Atkinson, Crossroads. I have been a delegate at General Conference 6 different times. I do not ever remember trying to change any essentials. So these discussions about possibilities are remote. And I like the fact that it's hard to change our essentials. I don't know that I want to go this far, but maybe I'm a little naive. I like things the way they are. Speaking against, I think.
Understand voting for this memorial would change things away from the way they are. Currently, this idea is not there. It is an amendment to change it to make it even more difficult.
Mr. Chairman. Chairman. Reverend Cumberbatch. I think, Mr. Chairman, the use of the word veto is conveying a connotation that the resolution does not mean to convey. Certainly, we don't have the kinds of powers like what happens at United Nations. But I think the resolution calls us to, again, understand, which we all agreed on, that those fundamental essentials, particularly the doctrinal areas, are so very, very important to our very, very existence that all and sundry across the spectrum of the Wesleyan world should have an opportunity to express their feelings on it. Of course, I don't mean to belabor the discussion, but you know the Caribbean sent a very, very strong message, because in the past, historically, things were sent to us and we graciously agreed to them, even though we expressed our reservation. And of course, there's some of you who are at the National Conference would know that a resolution was sent to the National Conference and passed, indicating that when a particular conference is contemplating changes, that there should be some measure of collaboration across the general church, the general conferences, so that we can have some measure of agreement even up there. If you look at the resolve, not the resolves, the razes, it gives some insight into what we're all about. But certainly the veto. A veto, it's not about vetoing, sir. That has a particular connotation. Because historically, we have always embraced, and embraced strongly too, up to as not just this conference, but the conference before, some amendment came down to us, and we graciously said, look, we go along with it, even though we had some reservations. But the time has come, we have said, you may be small in size, but we believe that equally we can speak to any issue, and that our voices must be heard on fundamental issues that impact us as Wesleyans. And there is no question at all, certainly from the Caribbean, concerning our commitment to the Wesleyan Holiness Church. We continue to promote our institutions. Even at that end, we promote our institutions, and certainly we have benefited immensely from the graciousness of North America. So there's no reason for us to have a negative approach to North America. But we are saying that particularly when it comes to these fundamental issues that impact us, we know we're small, and numbers alone wouldn't do it. But you need some legislation which would give us some teeth. It's almost sort of like what happened years ago in context of America with affirmative action. I'm not going to parallel it, but I'm just making a point. And that's all the resolution is seeking to do. Thank you.
Thank you, brother. I'm believing that we're about ready to vote on this, and this is going to need to have a record, so please take your electronic device and prepare to vote. Anyone need more time to vote? Polls are closed. You can see the vote totals there. So we will go to the reading of Memorial 73.
Before you turn all your pages, Memorial 73 is withdrawn as it was cared for in Memorial 360.
So please turn to Memorial 833, and we will turn to our reader.
Resolved that after a general officer's annual report, it would require a general superintendent's recommendation to continue in that service. Resolved, if the general superintendent does not recommend the general officer, they may recommend her removal. Resolved, that the required 2/3 majority vote for removal of a general conference elected general official be changed to a majority vote of all members of the general board. Resolved, that paragraph 1830 of the Discipline of the Wesleyan Church be amended as follows. Amenability. The general officials are amenable to the general board for their official conduct and their moral character. They are subject to direction from the general conference, the general board, and the executive board. They may be removed from office for cause or when the best interests of the church or the disabling physical or mental health of the official so requires. If a general conference or general board elected official does not receive a recommendation to continue from the general superintendent after their annual report, the lack of recommendation to continue shall serve as a recommendation for their removal on such grounds as stated above. The removal from office of any general officer requires a majority vote of all members of the general board. The removal from office of those general officials that are elected by the general board shall require a majority vote of all members of the general board. Resolved, that after amending paragraph 1830 of the Discipline of the Wesleyan Church reads as follows. The general officials are amenable to the general board for their official conduct and their moral character. They are subject to direction from the general conference, the general board, and the executive board. They may be removed from office for cause or when the best interests of the church or the disabling physical or mental health of the official so requires. If a general conference or general board elected official does not receive a recommendation to continue from the general superintendent after their annual report, the lack of recommendation to continue shall serve as a recommendation for their removal. The removal from office of any general official requires a majority vote of all members of the general board. The removal from office of those general officials that are elected by the general board shall require a majority vote of all members of the general board. Resolved, that the General Conference Editing Committee be empowered to bring other discipline statements into conformity with this action.
That comes moved.
Yes, sir.
You have that before you. Is there any discussion? Well then, this is going to require a simple majority vote. Oh, yes, sir.
Ken Murphy, Greater Ohio. Did I read that correctly? After the annual service report, does that imply that the general superintendent's hands will be tied for up to 1 year?
The discipline has a provision if there is any misconduct, if there's anything wrong, that at any point along the process, someone can be removed. This is getting more to simply an annual review, and it's getting more towards performance as opposed to they've done something terribly wrong, like morally or ethically. Was that the nature of your question?
No, it is, but I would not, I would want to free up the superintendent, the general superintendent, to make a change even more quickly than waiting for an annual review process to come along.
And in my opinion, this does not preclude that. It probably makes this annual review a bit more obvious as a time to simply not recommend renewal. But it does not preclude, if there's exigent circumstances, that a general superintendent may call for that prior.
Well, Ken, there would be HR issues within the headquarters and policy that's there that would cover, I think, what you're talking about.
Yes, sir.
May I, Mike Hilson from Chesapeake District. May I dig a little deeper on Ken's question? Would it require moral failure for a review or a removal of recommendation mid-year? Or could such removal of recommendation come because of failure to accomplish the task at hand?
Yes. Yes, that could be included, absolutely. It does not require moral failure.
Okay, so the general superintendent's recommendation can be removed at any point in a given church year.
I believe that is our current stand, that can happen.
Very good.
At
Thank
any general board meeting, that recommendation can be made by a general superintendent, and if it's a 2/3 vote, which also applies to DSs, by the way. Just wanted to lighten the mood in the room a little bit.
Ken Paul Hamus, the Northeast District. I think line 28 and 29 addresses that in this memorial. It gives provision there for they may be removed from office for cause or in the best interest of the church. I think it's already stated there.
I think this isn't revolutionary. This just cleans up the idea of an annual review and recommendation process. Are you ready to vote on it? Let's try a voice vote, since this is a simple majority, see how it works. No, we got another question, I'm sorry.
My name is Stephen Laudermillick. I'm from the Penn York District. I have a point of clarification. In looking at the discipline, section 40 underneath 1655, which is the general board requirements and authority, in this amendment, it talks about changing that language in lines 34, 35, 36. But I think this would put us in conflict with what the discipline says in 1655. So in 1655, it references that it's a 2/3 majority. And I feel like if we made this change, maybe it's just editorial, but there'd have to be a change inside the discipline in 1655, part 40A.
Yeah, if you'll notice, the last paragraph of this memorial says to make editorial changes consistent with this vote.
Yeah, so clarification on that then was that this is referencing the fact that it's all members of the general board and removal of office of those general officials elected by the general board. So I'm just trying to make sure that I'm understanding that this is basically who we elect here in this conference and who the general board may elect or appoint. Both would be subject to just a simple majority, not a 2/3. Is that correct?
I don't have a response to that. I can only refer us back to this particular memorial. It speaks specifically, I would think we're within what this memorial says is.
That's my purpose for the question, because in 40A of 1655, it says remove from office a general official elected by the general conference or to remove from general board membership an area representative, or remove from office a district superintendent, as the chair has pointed out, shall require a 2/3 majority. So that's what I'm wondering is that paragraph needing to be changed, or is that more than just editorial?
This memorial doesn't speak to those other positions. This is only speaking specifically it's speaking to the general officers and the general superintendent's review of them. That's what this is speaking to.
Yeah, and I get that, but I was wondering if it might be in conflict if we're looking for only editorial changes, that this memorial would then kind of be in conflict because it references that section. And so the section would say 2/3, but this memorial would be saying
40A would just have to be edited to reflect this. In other words, there would be a little more language to 40A to be specific on who, on this one as opposed to the other ones.
instead of lumping them into one group and split them out. Okay, thank you.
Any further discussion on this? Are you ready to vote? Let's try a voice vote, just for the fun of it. And if you would approve, please say aye. Aye. I like that. If you don't, say no. I believe that passed. I'm going to declare it passed. Now, madam, we move to...
The next memorial is Memorial 232. Resolved that discipline paragraph 1830 subparagraph 30 be amended as follows. Elect by ballot and plurality vote a district secretary and members at large of the District Board of Administration. And resolved that the discipline editing committee make any changes necessary to reflect the passage of this legislation. Mr. Chair, I move the adoption of Memorial 232.
Is there any discussion regarding this? Well, you were in a good mood. Let's see about doing this again. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. It is so ordered.
The next memorial is 241. Resolved that paragraph 1206 of the discipline be amended by deleting the sentence, a ministerial member at large shall be chosen from among the ordained ministers of the district. 1206, regulations for member at large. Each member at large of a district board of administration shall be a member who meets the leadership qualifications of a local Wesleyan church within the district of service, both at the time of election and throughout the tenure of membership. The term of office shall be for 1, 2, or 3 years, and the member at large shall serve until a successor is elected and qualified. Regulations governing the amenability of a member at large of the District Board of Administration and the declaring and filling of a vacancy in such office are the same as those for district officials set forth in 1265 and 1272. So that paragraph 1206 of the discipline now reads, regulations for a member at large. Each member at large of a district board of administration shall be a member who meets the leadership qualifications of a local Wesleyan church within the district of service, both at the time of election and throughout the tenure of membership. The term of office shall be for 1, 2, or 3 years, and the member at large shall serve until a successor is elected and qualified. Regulations governing the amenability of a member at large of the District Board of Administration and the declaring and filling of a vacancy in such office are the same as those for district officials set forth in 1265 and 1272. Mr. Chair, I recommend the adoption of Memorial 241.
It is before you. Is there any discussion regarding it? We're coming up to the time of an order of the day, so I'm going to move this if we can. Those of you in favor say aye. Aye. I'll hold it for your questions.
Chris Williams, Crossroads District. I think that we should consider not voting for this memorial in the affirmative. And the reason is because we set aside ordained ministers in our denomination to do 3 things: to preach the word, to administer the sacraments, and to rightly order the church. Our district boards of administration are those places where the church is rightly ordered. And if we open those ministerial seats to licensed ministers, I think we run the risk of the potential of having a district board with no ordained ministers on it. That may seem like an extreme option, but there's no prohibition against the number of licensed ministers who could fill those seats. And we have allowed licensed ministers to be a credential we use in 2 different ways. This memorial does not differentiate between licensed ministers who have completed 7 courses and those who have licensed ministers as permanent status. So I would urge us to vote no on this memorial. Thank you.
I'm going to set aside that aye vote we just took because of this. Is there anyone else who would have a question or comment about this? And I'll ask you to vote again. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Joey Jennings, Western New York District. It just, as I have observed, created a loophole, or a place where licensed ministers could not serve on the district board either as lay people or as clergy. And at district conference, licensed people are considered clergy in the balance of lay and clergy. I think because of the election and nomination process, very unlikely that we'd ever have most of the board being licensed. But I think it's a person that is in the licensed ministry, and we have made it so licensed ministers could serve that capacity their entire ministry career, should be able to serve on the board if the district chooses to elect them. It still has the qualification that the district has to elect them, but I think we should not eliminate them from being able to serve on the district board.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak to this motion?
Mr. Chairman, I hope the conference is not tired of hearing me, but I rise because these things affect us all. It's amazing the issues we get from the Caribbean because people are really disciplined. It's online. Our ministers and the people are aware of what's happening in one jurisdiction, so therefore these things have relevance for us as well. I can't vote, but I can express an opinion. I think the whole issue of the licensed minister or ordained minister has served us well over the years. Certainly it has in the context of the Caribbean. What is happening now, I suppose, throughout the world, Christian world, certainly in the context of the region, I don't want to say trivializing. While we understand that every man is a minister, I still think we have to maintain that distinction between clergy and laity. And one is not expected to be a licensed minister indefinitely, unless that has changed. When people come into license, the category of a licensed minister, the understanding is that you're moving. Sometimes people come in to become a licensed minister and say, "Oh, I don't want to be ordained." My understanding is that once you're in that mold, you're moving towards what? You're moving towards ordination. And that in itself gives the licensed minister something to look forward to. I am not really in support of making the licensed minister a member of the District Board of Administration. And to my mind, at that level, certainly as a clergy person, it suggests a measure of maturity, and you're recognizing as well, well, if we want a better word, the worth and the authority that is invested in an ordained minister. And it wouldn't hurt. In about a few years, a person can move from one to the next. So I would caution us, just like you're hearing, I know in other churches you have lay ministers who have the function of baptizing babies, even marrying. In fact, I can tell you, recently in one of our district conferences, we had a resolution coming up, and I suppose, I have no doubt that they were very much in touch with some of the discussions that were going on in North America. But they were proposing that lay persons as well have the opportunity to baptize babies, administer communion, you know, those kinds of things. And while I understand the intent, I am not sure that that's the best thing for us at this time in terms of just having because what can happen to the former speaker talked about situations where you may have a little dearth or shortage, but you can very well have situations where you have licensed persons being elected over persons who are ordained and who have served very, very well. And I don't think that we want to do that. That could be pretty deflating.
Thank you, brother.
I would issue a caution on that.
Thank you for that fraternal opinion. And just to clarify, what we are doing in this statutory only applies to the North American General Conference, but it's a reminder that it does have influence and impact. Yes, Mark.
Mark Sundstrom, Northwest District. Curious, in sympathy to the two comments that were made prior to that one, would there be an amendment that would say only as many as 2/3 had to be ordained, and that would open the door for licensed or permanent licensed minister status to be eligible, but not to become a majority of the ministerial members at large on a district board of administration?
Are you making a suggestion or an amendment, Mark?
I promised I wasn't even going to speak at a microphone on this thing, so I'm asking the question. If I got to make an amendment, I can try to figure that out too. But that was the question at our table was, yes, that could be a potential reality that maybe we're not considering today. However, the fact that we have people that serve very well as lay delegates on DBAs get a call, go through the process of becoming licensed and are now ineligible to serve on the LBA, surely for the fact that they were called, doesn't quite make sense. So is there a middle way through this that preserves the unity and the intention of it without creating this hypothetical where we have no ordained ministers on a DBA?
Excellent point. I would suggest that we may want to see, if we approve this, have some experience with it to see. I would just be pragmatic here to say that it would be difficult for me to believe that this would ever approach that threshold in any district conference. And so I think it's perhaps, it's a valid point, I don't say, but perhaps a moot issue in practical outcomes. And so if we were seeing this happen, a subsequent memorial could be brought to say, we want to ensure that 2/3 of the clergy representation on a DBA be ordained, something like that. I'm not sure that we need to amend that right now, but I'm.
Agreed. My concern was that it not pass when it could be amended and pass. And I don't know how valid that concern is, but I'd hate to see this get shot down and we're 4 years where licensed ministers can't serve as delegates.
Prepare an amendment if you prefer.
Okay.
Let us know. Mike Ford.
So I wrote the amendment, but I used majority instead of 2/3. So it says lines 37 and 38. A ministerial member at large shall be chosen from among the licensed or ordained ministers of the district, so long as the number of licensed ministers does not outnumber the number of ordained ministers on the District Board of Administration.
You want to bring that amendment forward?
She didn't give her name.
You didn't give us your name and district, please, and then if
Angela
you,
Rogowski, Chesapeake District.
and you move that amendment, madam?
Yes, sir.
Is there support for that? You have the amendment before us. Which,
Mike one. I'd like to speak against the amendment. My name is Dave Johnson from Pacific Southwest District. My concern is that with the DBMD, I am the chair of the DBMD in our zone, in our district, and we could create a scenario where licensed ministers are voting for themselves to be pushed onto the district conference for ordination. So I just would speak against the entire thing and the amendment altogether. That's it.
John Wickstrom, Florida District. Just a question, if the amendment did not pass, districts would have the opportunity to pass a standing rule to that effect, correct? So a district standing rule could create that for their own DBA, even if this amendment didn't create that denomination-wide.
Probably not, because it would have to be carefully worded so that it does not contradict this we put in the discipline, and a district cannot have a standing rule that contradicts or even abridges substantially a discipline. Nice idea, though.
Tim Kirkus, Pacific Southwest District. So just as a, I guess it'd be a point of inquiry, but a licensed minister can be invited to be a part of and speak into any district board of administration. And then the inquiry actually is this, what about commission ministers? I don't believe they're allowed to serve on the DBA, and this doesn't do anything for them. So in general, I'm speaking against this. I think it does hinder people from continuing in the process of becoming ordained. And it's not necessarily, right now our system does not limit those who are licensed to speak into, be a guest of, or a permanent guest of a district board. Thank you.
Mike on Mike 3.
Mike Hilson, Chesapeake District, and I'm sorry, I want to speak firmly in favor of the resolution and very softly against the amendment because I fear Angela. And so I just want to say the ordained ministers and licensed ministers are approved by the exact same body and are asked the exact same questions. And how we would say to somebody, or how we have said to someone, we want you to work for us and we're going to govern you, but we refuse to allow you to have any voice in that governance, just seems patently unfair to me.
We're going to reread the amendment that is before us, and then let's confine our remarks right now to the amendment. We will vote on that, and then we'll get back to the original memorial, either amended or not amended.
A ministerial member at large shall be chosen from among the licensed or ordained ministers of the district, so long as the number of licensed ministers does not outnumber the number of ordained ministers on the district board of administration.
That is the amendment that's before us. If you have something to speak to that, sir.
Matt Mitchell from the North Carolina West District. I speak against the amendment. I believe that one of the issues we are facing in our culture, but also within the denomination, is a lowering of the bar. And we speak a lot about identity. We cannot change our identity if we keep lowering the bar. Ordination and I'm on the DBMD, I'm the chair for our district, getting individuals to pursue ordination is very difficult now that we have the permanent license status.
students are often saying, why do I need to take 24 classes when I can go ahead and have this same effect and authority if I just take 12 classes? So what's the point of ordination if we move forward with this amendment or even the whole memorial at all? And so I think, as it was said yesterday by one of our Wesleyan educators, we need a good theology of ordination.
Thank you. I would really like to urge us to get ready to vote. I think we've heard a lot of comments, and they've been good comments, and this is a significant issue. It was significant for our denomination to open the door for people to be commissioned a long time ago. Significant to open the door for people to continue in ministry as a licensed minister. And a lot of that was for second career people who were engaged in this. And this just wants to open that door. So I would like for you to take your electronic pad, if you would, please.
Right.
Yes, ma'am?
Is it too late to add commissioned, licensed, commissioned, or ordained to include commissioned ministers as well? Or is that an editorial?
It's two different categories.
Those are two quite different categories.
That's what I was thinking. So I can, if I need to, I can amend it to add that. That would make a
You
difference.
want to move to amend the amendment?
Yes. I would like to include commissioned ministers. I believe that's important.
So how would the amendment then read as amended?
So where it says licensed or ordained, it would say licensed, comma, commissioned, comma, or ordained. Thank you.
So support for that? I hear support for that. Let's, yes, sir.
Just a question. Are we saying, Tim Kirkus, Pacific Southwest District, and because our table's asking this question, when we say licensed ministers, are we saying permanently licensed or just licensed or both? Can we have a
That has not been specified.
so it's unspecified?
Please take your pad. We have a memorial, once amended. The amendment has been amended. So we're going to vote on the amendment to the amendment. The last vote is whether or not we add the word commissioned minister. That would be added into this quota. If we're ready to vote, if you are in favor of that, please vote.
Second A. I think you have to change your poll.
You don't have the amendment on the order
No,
screen?
it's in order. They're moving to insert.
Whoever's doing the screen, we are voting on the word commissioned being added on the amendment to the amendment.
Didn't say commissioned.
In two places.
Did you add it? Oh, that's the title. Oh.
Mr. Chair, I believe it should be commissioned. The amendment to the amendment is to add commissioned. Is that correct? Yes. So that's.
It's the title. You gotta explain that to them. On a secondary amendment. But the title looks the same. Look at the ballot, what it says. That's what's confusing.
So what you're seeing, I think, on your screen right now does add that word commissioned ministers.
Miss.
Can you put up the secondary amendment?
Are you prepared to vote on my word? The point of order was raised that you can't see it on the screen. Yes, sir?
Wesley Rowan, Great Lakes Region. If you wouldn't mind pulling the text back up, I think that when we added the amendment, the word as the number of licensed and commissioned ministers. In other words, licensed and commissioned together cannot supersede the number of ordained ministers. As it reads, licensed or commissioned, you add them together, you could still have more than the number of ordained ministers.
Actually, I think the grammar doesn't say that. the number of licensed or commissioned is a number singular.
Yes, but the word number applies to licensed or commissioned separately,
To insert.
I believe.
I would read it the number, just don't get in a grammar argument here, but I would read it the number of licensed and commissioned. That's one number.
Right, but that's not what it says. It says or.
No, it still says that.
What
Thank you.
questions on the second?
It's the number of licensed or commissioned. That's one number. Does not exceed so that's one category, licensed and commissioned. That number does not exceed the number of ordained ministers. But if we're confused here, we're going to be confused lots of places. We're back to voting on inserting the word commission.
You could just say and or, and that way. I don't know. That gets even more confusing, maybe.
We can't keep doing this. We can't keep editorializing on this. Right now, this vote on the singular concept of adding the word commissioned.
So is that the ballot that they get, what they're going to see?
Everyone had time to vote? Polls are closed. That amendment did not carry. So we're back to the amendment now. Please, madam, read that for us again. Or put that on the screen again without adding the word commissioned.
Can you change it now to amendment?
So now we are back, the number of licensed ministers does not outnumber the number of ordained ministers on the District Board of Administration. That is the amendment to this memorial. Are you prepared to vote on this amendment? All those, then let's go to our voting again. Polls are closed. So now we are back to the memorial as it is written in your document, not amended. We have really beat this one to death. Are you ready to vote on this? I don't hear anybody waving big signs at me. That's wonderful. So let's vote on the original memorial, not amended. You look ready? Polls are closed. That was fun. We have now the order of the day for the, so at 2 p.m. general election. So we're behind time here. That took a little longer than we anticipated, but we're at the 2 p.m. general officer election. This morning, we adopted Memorial 360 and voted on a new general superintendent. In light of the immediate adoption of Memorial 360, we're asking our general superintendent-elect, Jim Dunn, to come forward and present his leadership structure and corresponding general officer nominees for election.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are ready to reveal the slate of officers that by protocol I have nominated to serve. I would love for you to think about function more than structure that you approved this morning, that there could be some liberty in doing things just a little bit differently, and also staying within the confines of budget constrictions and making sure that we're efficient in how the national office, the headquarters office, operates. And so the following have been nominated by me to this conference. That is, as Assistant General Superintendent, a new position for us, Reverend Mike School. as the function and property of what has been known as church multiplication and discipleship. I'd really like to call it North American evangelism, but regardless, that is Dr. Wayne Otto. For the Executive Director of Global Partners, Reverend Nikki Nettleton. For an Executive Director of Communication, to make sure that we're all saying the same thing and driving the same brand and even using the same colors. That is nominated as Mr. Corey Pence. And then for election of General Secretary, also overseeing our publishing house, that is Mrs. Janelle Vernon. These are what I would call the executive leadership band of the Wesleyan Church of North America.
So there's some changes in nomenclature here that are editorial and streamlining, but we are going to ask you to vote as we walk through these names and positions that Dr. Dunn has just outlined for us, one at a time, and that begins with Mike Score as nominee for Assistant General Superintendent.
So they voting to approve or they're going to have nominations from the floor? I'm on page, this is 27. He's on 27. You're on 38. I'm on 27.
So we're having a little discussion up here, as you can see. The reason for that is we've never done this before. This position is not in the discipline. It is you, by voting for this, you in essence are creating a new position. We're trying to figure out whether we should open for nominations to the floor or not. I'm not happy about doing that, but maybe we're supposed to do that. But just so that you are aware, we have had people in the position of chief of staff, et cetera, but this elevates that position. And that's the reason it's being brought to you, or one of the reasons it's being brought to you as a vote of the general conference. So are you still voting on this election? Just want to make you aware of that.
Mr. Chair, Caleb Carr, Cable Carr from the Western New York District. Could we have the nominees stand when we call their names so we know who they are in the room?
Yes,
and their
sir.
current position as well, from the lady from the Chesapeake, and the current position as well. Thank you.
I think they can just stand. Mike Score, would you please stand, sir? Now, do you regret that request? No. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that.
Mike is currently the district superintendent of the Pacific Southwest District of the North American Wesleyan Church.
Where's 360?
We're having a little bit, since this is new, we're having a little discussion, and we believe, yes.
Carl Eastlake, Northeast District. Congratulations, Jim. Your first decision is controversial already. Just a clarifying question about if this is a general officer election, and is it a chain election, meaning that, God forbid, if that proverbial bus ever hit our brother here, does he automatically rise to superintendent because it's not an assistant to the superintendent, it's the assistant superintendent.
That would have to be a general board action. He might
Okay.
assume some of those duties, but that is not a provision that is specified.
Okay, okay.
Adam Lipscomb, Great Lakes Region. I just need a point of clarification on, I'm a bit confused on, at the general level, are we electing a general superintendent who then hires staff who are governed by HR practices? Or are we electing general officers to different positions? And I'm at least confused, and I think it might help us move forward and have clear accountability if we know which we're doing.
Thank you. We passed earlier today Memorial 360, which in essence gave authority for a realigning of general headquarters staff and to do what we've just done, that the general superintendent-elect would present a slate of officials to the general conference for their election. So to be honest, what we're just doing right now, Dr. Dunn could have elected, could have chosen to go to the general board and ask them to elect an assistant general superintendent, but he chose to do this on the floor of the conference to give us more input and to elevate that status of that position. We believe we covered that by approving Memorial 360 earlier. In a practical outcome to your question, sir, you did an either or, and the answer is yes. And as much of the Wesleyan system is a Presbyterian hybrid system, that we sort of combine that Episcopal with that community, and somewhere in between, we want to give credibility to a newly elected general superintendent to nominate and direct that staff to be working with him. But we also want affirmation and support from the body to affirm that. Are we ready to vote on this nomination?
Santee Beatty, North Carolina East. For clarification, I've seen different labels on this position. So can we clarify, is this position assistant focused on district superintendents? Is it focused on education and clergy development? Where does this fall in terms of the leadership structure? It's shown up in different communications in different ways. And I just wanted to clarify where that fits in this particular context.
Thank you for the question. So this particular role will assist the general superintendent in a variety of ways. It will be working and partnering with district superintendents. And when the general superintendent cannot be, for example, there are 7 duplicate district conferences of dates where the general superintendent has to choose which one he or she's going to. And so the assistant general superintendent would be the next viable choice representing the general church at a district conference. So working with districts, definitely. Working with the function of ordination and elevating that, which has already been discussed today, and making sure that we're dignifying ordination again. And the highest office of the church, the assistant general superintendent, will assist with that. The universities, as far as accountability and partnership, will work with the general superintendent directly. And so it is a mashup, if you will, of responsibilities into this position, working shoulder to shoulder with the general superintendent as we serve the church.
Let's try to get back to this election. Are there any other nominations from the floor? Are you ready to vote? Then Mike Score is the one nominee as Assistant General Superintendent. The polls are open. I'm pretty sure you've had time. Polls are closed.
The next nominee is Dr. Wayne Otto. If he would stand, please. Wayne is a longtime church planter in Michigan, South Carolina, and also a professor of church planting, and earned his doctorate in planting as well, but has a real heart for saving souls, and that's why he's the nominee for what we know as church multiplication and discipleship.
Thank you. Are there other nominations from the floor? This is not creating a new position. I hear no other nominations. Nominations are closed. Please proceed to vote. I believe polls are closed.
Next consideration is Reverend Nikki Nettleton. If you would please stand. Nikki is the nominee for the Executive Director of Global Partners, longtime missionary, also on the resource team currently at Global Partners, and she would be engaged in what I might prefer, but for now is Global Partners, but the world or global evangelism as we go after souls. So Nikki is the nominee for the Executive Director of Global Partners.
Thank you. Are there other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Please proceed to vote. Sounds like enough time. Polls are closed.
The next consideration is an Executive Director of Communications, and this will involve all things messaging, branding. It involves helping us look like we're saying the same thing and creating the same message. In my opinion, it involves redoing the Wesleyan Pastors page on Facebook, but regardless, I'll take that as a vote to just do away with the thing. But anyway, we should probably tell people what we're for before we tell people what we're against, but we can talk about that later if you'd like. Mr. Corey Pence is the nominee for this position. He currently serves as the Vice President for Creative Impact at Oklahoma Wesleyan University. He's standing here in the back.
This is a bit different flavor of a office as well, and bridges, if my understanding is correct, across departments and has a more unified imagery and messaging and communication.
Correct.
Are there other nominees from the floor? Hearing none, we will move to vote. And polls are closed.
The final consideration for the Executive Leadership Band at the national headquarters, which also, by the way, includes the General Treasurer, who is elected by the General Board on the opposite 2 years of every General Conference for a 4-year term. But for General Secretary and also giving oversight to the Wesleyan Publishing House, the nominee is Mrs. Janelle Vernon, and she's here on the stage.
Are there other nominations from the floor? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Please proceed to vote. I believe that's ample time. Polls are closed.
Thank you very much. Before I take my seat, I would just like to point out that this group is aging by the minute. They turned from 240 years to 300 years, even within today. So congratulations.
The problem with that, Jim, is that I was the junior member of this firm. And now I'm just an old guy again. So those of you who've just been elected, can you just make your way up to this platform, please? We're sort of heading for an afternoon break in a minute. And if you just come up here, that would be helpful. And a personal word while they're coming, this does not diminish anyone else, but a special thanks to Janelle Vernon from the Council of Three. She has been amazing to work with and has helped us. Congratulations to each one of you. In just a moment, Dr. Lyon, we're going to do a commissioning on Wednesday, you know. You'll have to get dressed up again, unfortunately. But that's a wonderful day, and we don't want to in any way diminish that day. But we just want to join in prayer for you today. Grateful for your service, grateful for what God has called you to do, and want to pray God's anointing on this. This is a good crew right here. So please, Dr. Lyon, lead us in prayer.
Lord Jesus, through the years, you've called many people to these positions. And today we're in a new day, and you've called new people to this position and to these places and to these ministries. And I ask that they will be able to do, as you have told us, more than we can ask, think, or imagine. And we look forward to all that you're going to do through these leaders for your kingdom and for your glory in these next 4 years. In Jesus' name, amen.
We're getting ready to go to a memorial that could be just a no-brainer, but it could generate some significant discussion, and we're getting somewhat close to a break time, so I'm always in favor of a break. And I'm going to suggest, allow me just a bit of privilege to have a little perspective right now. Some of you, I can tell with all this memorial stuff and some of this, your eyes are glazing over and you're wondering, I had a life at home. And I can understand that. Let me suggest two things. One is humility. We are tweaking, changing the discipline of the Wesleyan Church. I'll get back to that in a moment. But one of the strengths of the Wesleyan Church is that we have a high view of Scripture. We believe it is authenticated and authoritative. And we also understand that it is not in our purview or authority to change that. So that's not up for grabs or discussion really today. Now, we'll have a couple of things that impact the interpretation of that Scripture, and that does have some varying viewpoints, but let's understand that. Second, having said that, we're pretty sure that this document is not the inspired, inerrant Word of God, because we get together every 4 years and change it. We do tweaks to it. We do substantial changes to it. We've talked this morning how difficult it is to change the essentials that we believe are from the Word of God, but there's some structural issues that we mess with. Having said that, we should have deep respect and appreciation for the discipline that we are now amending. If you are a delegate to this general conference, you must be a member of a local Wesleyan church and therefore a member of the Wesleyan church. I took that vow. I've never backed up on it. If you are a minister of the Wesleyan church, you take additional vows to support the articles of religion and support the Wesleyan church. I was a DS for a lot of years, and I took another set of vows that I would uphold and support the doctrine. I hope you take those seriously. There's still a few things in the discipline I wish were worded differently. I don't altogether think that it's infallible, but I made a commitment and a pledge that I will submit to the discipline of the Wesleyan church. Now, I'm pretty adept at finding some loopholes there. But I will submit to the Wesleyan church discipline. I love the spirit of our discipline. We tweak the fine print. We've done some editorial things today, but let's not lose sight of the fact that this is a splendid document, and it's in our hands today. And so I understand some of this may bore you a bit, but don't get too bored. This really matters long term, or at least some of it does. Do good work. Have a good break. Come back ready to tackle some more stuff. We're going to tackle one that really, really matters. See ya.